everybody. Thank you so much for coming again. It's wonderful to see familiar faces. As you know, this is our whole reason for being here at the cardiology department at Trinity is to take care of your hearts. Our next heart-to-heart education is January 31st. And we're going to have one of our cardiologists that will be here. And it's just kind of going to be an open forum. We're going to trial this. Let's just ask the cardiologist a question. Another way that we're taking care of your hearts are our cooking classes, which I think you are all familiar with. You all recognize Teresa. So we continue to add momentum with those. Your classes coming up are starting to fill up. All right. And so then if you want to get a hold of us, there's our email, heart, the number 2, heart, at unitypoint.org, 309-779-5399. All right, so tonight, Dr. Teresa Pangan. Teresa graduated from Iowa State University and Texas Women's University. She has a PhD in nutrition and certifications. She's a wealth of knowledge. I'm so excited to listen to this reducing stress and managing stress. We all have it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Teresa.
Thank you so much. So thank you for coming out tonight. I know this time of year things get, pulling at you, and it gets hard to sometimes do this. It's about your health, and for me, your health is your first wealth. And I am going to share some really exciting information about stress. Now, how many of you give me a thumbs up if you heard that stress is bad for you? Okay, we got some thumbs up, hands up. Yes. So, yes, we commonly hear that. Well, today I'm going to really break down some of the misunderstandings with stress, tell you about some new science, and then also what you can do about stress. So you're going to go away with some things you can actually do to reduce your stress and really change things. And very possibly change the trajectory of your life, I believe. This is kind of overview of what I'm going to cover. When I say the word stress, what comes to mind? Throw out some things that come into mind.
Like a work challenge.
A work challenge, Anxiety. Bingo, we're talking more about that. All these are good.
Heart rate.
What's that?
Elevated heart rate.
Elevated heart rate.
Time constraint.
Time constraint. Yes, these are all great. And these all we're gonna address tonight. So I want to start off with kind of where did this stress response come from? This wiring we have that it seems so bad for us. So we need to turn the clock back about 10,000, 100,000, something like that years. And I actually brought a guest. So I brought Ginger. So Ginger here. So she is house trained. So she will not attack you, okay? So she's really nice to pet. So, and she loves coming. So, but she reminds us that our stress response actually came from when we were roaming with the Bengal tiger, probably in the Asian kind of plain somewhere. And we survived because of this wiring. This wiring taught us to pay attention. If we saw like an orange kind of trail off in the distance, we had to take notice. Or if we heard rustling in the bushes, we couldn't I'll get to that in 15 minutes. No, that was time to take notice. Even if it might remotely, anything perceived as a tiger, we had to take notice. And we got this response in us so that just in case we had to run for our life or fight for our life. So that's where this wiring comes from. Okay. So I like to explain stress in a way that really helps you wrap your arms around it, because we toss around that word stress a lot. And I find even myself for a long time, I was like, I need to dig into this deeper, some way to just understand it. So I've come up with this where I call it has a beginning, a middle, and an end, stress. Okay, so just hang with me. Let's go back to 100,000 years ago. And I get up in the morning, and I'm probably gathering plants, maybe a few berries in there. I haven't had breakfast yet. I got to gather it. So I'm going about my business, just enjoying being outdoors. And I hear a little rustling. So I stop, and I turn, and I see like feet away a 350-pound Bengal tiger. So there's no leash, there's no fence, there's no nothing between me and the Bengal tiger. So my first response is, then my body goes into this cascade of things that I can't control. It's going to go into it, no matter what. So things like your heart rate going up, your blood pressure going up, adrenaline and cortisol going up. If I snuck a few berries, my digestion's going to stop, okay? Because you know what? I don't need digestion going on if I'm going to have to run for my life or fight for my life. So immune system actually goes offline. So because there's no viruses you need to worry about in that moment. Reproduction is deprioritized. You get a bitter clotting factor in your blood just in case Ginger gets, a finger or an arm so that you clot. You get glucose shunted out of the muscles into the bloodstream because then it's ready to go. So you're ready because your body is like, I've got a few seconds to survive. I've got to really put everything into it. So everything's going into it. And that's what it knows. That is the initial response. That's the start of it. So I choose to run, okay? So I'm not going to fight. I'm going to run. So there's two possible outcomes at this point. Now we're in the middle phase of stress. So what is one of the possible outcomes? I get away, so I run. I'm able to get away, or I get a lunch. Yeah, breakfast. Yeah, for the tiger. So yeah. So, but you know what? What's your first name again? Linda. Linda here. She sees me, and she's like. So I see her, thank goodness, and I give it my best and go to Linda. And Linda has maybe a tree house, a cave, a hut, something like that. And so I run in there and we slam the door, climb up the tree, whatever it is, and we put all our weight in that, and the tiger is pawing and trying, and finally it gets bored and it just walks off. So now Linda has saved my life. So now we go into the final stage. So Linda saved my life, so I'm probably not going to go, Linda, I'm so glad you were there. That just worked out really nice. And you know what, could I buy you a coffee? Right. So, it's probably, oh my goodness, Linda! Yeah. I probably give her this big hug. Or, I might show off my dance moves. So I might sit down and cry. I might laugh. And if we were two 10-year-old boys, we would probably wrestle. Okay? So these are all things that we call celebration. They mark the end of stress as we used to, we were programmed for. And here's the thing, our body now knows we're safe and there's no tigers around. And it can go back to its safe, normal, healthy level. That's the way it was initially created for. Now, nowadays, we don't have tigers, but we have what I call 21st century tigers. So we have things like laundry on the couch that are just, on our brain. And we have maybe not the best bosses. Maybe we have kids that aren't obeying. Maybe we have financial bills piling up. Maybe we're late for appointments. Maybe there's a toy for your kid or grandkid that they're out of until February, okay? So these are our 21st century tigers. And very often, we're all a little different, but for many of us, all of us have different things that trigger our tiger response, but that fight or flight response is triggered. And here's the thing, it's triggered over and over throughout the day, because there's not one tiger a day. There's tiger after tiger after tiger. And our body is pretty smart. And what it does is it doesn't go down to a full rest. And it's kind of revved up, ready for that next tiger, because, guys, we got two instincts programmed into us. Survival, like surviving the next few minutes, and your body will waste your health in order to survive the next few minutes if it thinks it needs to. And the second thing is procreation. That's what we're wired. So we've got these 21st century tigers, and we've got these responses being set off. I mean, I didn't even talk about, news headlines or social media or things like that. For many of us, those can set us off too. There's certain things that get us, we're all a little different. Some things it's pollution in the environment, some things it's social justice, some things, other things that really they get at you. And they waste away your health. So they can lead to things like ulcers, heartburn, bloating, that's from the digestion, erectile dysfunction. Remember I said that reproduction is deprioritized. Plaque buildup, high blood pressure, anxiety, worry. Now let me talk a little bit about the anxiety and worry one, because that's a big piece. So when you go into tiger response, as I call it, the fight or flight, your brain actually goes partly offline. Because right now when you're listening to me, you are using 20% of your calories being burnt right now, just thinking and digesting what I'm saying. But your brain is only 2% of your body weight. So your brain is an energy-sucking organ. And if you are about to be attacked by a tiger, your brain is smart enough and says, you know what, we don't need the prefrontal cortex. That's kind of the latest part of your brain, and that sucks a lot of the energy. And that's what you use to learn French and algebra and make complex decisions. So, but when you're thinking about fighting a tiger and running, you don't need the prefrontal cortex, the higher executive functioning, that sucks all the energy. So your body says, okay, you're offline, at least partially. Well, when you go offline, what are you left with in your brain? The older brain. That's the impulsive brain. That's the childlike one. You know how when you have a thought, and you're like, ooh, that's not a good thought. And then your prefrontal cortex usually will come in and go, don't do that. Don't say that. Okay? We all have those. Okay? But now you don't have the prefrontal cortex. And it's childlike thinking. And it's hypervigilant. What I mean by that is imagine yourself downtown Rock Island at 2 o'clock in the morning by yourself, and you see a movement like a block away. You take out your phone, you're like, should I dial 911? No. That's called hypervigilant. You're looking at everything like it's a threat. And that's great when you're 2 o'clock in the morning alone outside, but if you carry that throughout the day and you're seeing everything as a threat, it's very easy to go into panic attack, anxiety. Okay, so now you know that this is all not good. So what are we to do? How do we tell our bodies we're safe and come down from this kind of revved up state? How do we close out? I like to call it closing out the stress cycle. How do we do what we used to do with the celebration throughout the day? How do we do that? Well, there's 3 activities that we find that are really helpful that I want to encourage you to think about, at least one that you do more of. And I promise you, you're going to find one that you love. Okay? So these are things like movement. And notice I use that word movement. Okay? I like that word movement. Because to me, that's things that I enjoy. And our bodies were made to move. We actually have systems in our bodies that don't even start up until we move a certain amount. Some of our protections don't even happen, because think about it. When we were in the plains with the tigers, we were moving a lot. Our systems came from that time. We gotta move. Now, find ways to enjoy moving. So that can be pickleball, it can be ballroom dancing, it can be darts. I moved the darts, that's a magnetic dart, but I moved it from the basement on up to next to the kitchen. So that way I can engage with my kids, and it's movement, guys. It still is. It's good. So, pickleball, when the weather gets better, you can do it outside. And I know we have have lots of courts here, but you can just do it in the middle of the street. Call the neighbors over. Now this one I really love. Now can you see that? You see the mugs? They use the mugs as the net. And they've got just frying pans as paddles there. So they get the creative points there. Now I used to actually turn my kitchen table into ping pong table. So it's not regulation size, it's just like this length. And I had this box that was like this long, and it was a triangle, just like this. And it was perfect. It was better than, we finally got a net that you clamped, and I think that scratches the table and all that. So I like the box better. But it's movement. Those are great things to do. So what can you do to move that you love to do? Find stuff. Okay, second thing is hobbies and creative expression. What do you love to do? Woodworking, crocheting, knitting. It's great. It's stuff that you lose yourself in. And the arts are fabulous. We have research that arts are great, that creative expression. You don't have to be good. You don't have to be going in a gallery or museum or anything like that. Coloring books, sketching, painting, music, playing an instrument. Again, you don't have to play well. There's all kinds of pianos people are trying to get rid of. So take one. Learn to play the piano. You can listen to music, but you have to lose yourself in it. Now, remember when your kids had teacher conferences and the teacher would hand a pile of papers that your kid had done as examples to show you? Well, my now 13-year-old last year, her teacher gave me this, 3 things I love, okay? And I want to read for you. First thing I love is my cat. We have 3 cats, so cats are very popular in our house. Another thing I love is my sister, which, it just made my heart pitter-patter, because, sisters don't always get along, so. And the last thing, a third thing I love is painting. Painting is my door to leave the world. When I pick up the paintbrush, I get a chance to escape this world. Painting is my chance to express myself. I get the chance to explore my mind and put my feelings onto a canvas. I express myself with colors, shapes, lines, or dots. She's very abstract is when she does hers. I escape from reality to go into dreams, values, things I love, and moods. Once I take my brush off, I return to the world. So for you, what is your painting? What is it? My 3 girls are very creative in their own sense. One of them does jewelry, earrings. I mean, she's never going to make money on Etsy or eBay or anything like that, but she enjoys it. And we get a lot of free jewelry. So, but what is it that you love to do now? If you're having trouble thinking of something, go back to your childhood and reflect on what did you enjoy doing there? Is there something you can kind of transfer to adulthood? And if you're still at a loss, ask people, what is your hobby? Do you have a creative expression? And start to figure out what it is, because it's really good for you. And the last thing is, be in nature. Be in nature. Now, we don't fully really understand this, but we know that when you're in nature, you don't have to be a camping kind of buff, but there's something relaxing about it. They even have studies at the Chicago Public Housing where people that looked at greenish, that they had lower stress and less fatigue than families that had to look at the building next to them and that's it. So what is it? You can just sit on the porch, well, when the weather permits. I mean, it's not too bad right now, honestly. So, but we're going into that kind of weather. But come springtime, you can sit on the porch, or you can just sit. I have a front window that I love watching the snow and the leaves, just sitting there and losing yourself in nature. Go walk, fishing, those kind of things. Okay, so those are the 3 kind of categories that we know. So think about what is one of those that you want to start doing more of so you can close out your stress cycle. Okay, so now I've talked all about stress and how you can manage it, but I want to actually, that's not the whole story. And we have some new science about stress that I'm excited to share with you, because this is really going to make a difference, I believe. So, I've been kind of hinting that, stress is bad and stress is the enemy, but I want to actually change that for you. And let me do that by sharing some studies. So the first study, they had 30,000 adults and they looked over 8 years. So the questions, how much stress have you had over the last year? And do you believe stress is harmful to your health? And then they went, so remember this took 8 years, and then they went back through public records and looked at who died. A little more of it. There's good news and there's bad news. Okay, so bad news first. So those who said they had had a lot of stress at the beginning of the study over the last year, they were 43% more likely at risk to die. But the good news is, those are the ones that believed stress was harmful to their health. But those that said they had a lot of stress in the last year, but they did say that stress was harmful, they didn't agree with the belief, they were the least likely. They had the lowest risk of dying, even lower than those that had little stress the year before, but they believed that stress was harmful. So the difference was their belief. So, well, if you change your belief, does it change your health? Let's see, let's find out. So there's a study, let's do another study, and they used a protocol called the social stress test. And this is a test where you are told, the participants are told to give an impromptu 5-minute speech. Okay, so no warning, on your personal weaknesses in front of a panel that are trained to give you nonverbal discouraging signs. Okay? Things like that. Now, that wasn't it. After that, they were given a surprise math test. So let's try it out real quick. Let's see how this is. So, and they had evaluators that were trained how to harass them while they're doing the math test. Okay. So imagine that. So let's try this out. So let's take 996 and count backwards by 7. On your mark, get set, go. Come on, faster, come on. Okay, stop. I heard a mistake in there. Let's try it again. No, just kidding. So you get the idea. So people were like, their heart was racing, their breath was fast, they were, sweating, and most people would think, oh, they're not handling this really well. But the thing was, the study that was done at Harvard University, they took a group of participants, and before they did this social stress protocol, they told them that stress is helpful. That when your heart is racing, it's getting blood and oxygen to your brain, that it needs it. Breathing faster, all that is just part of performing and getting more energy in your body so that you can perform better. So they were told that stress is helpful, and they were given confidence that this was good. So what they found was, okay, so this is your heart, and here's an artery, it's not an artery, but just play along. So, but this is what an artery would look like at rest, okay? If you're at rest, no stress, okay? So, and normally when you're stressed, your artery does this, it constricts, okay? And that's why heart disease is, associated with stress. So because we constrict, and then our heart has to work harder, then we have some damage, and then the plaque builds up, and all that stuff. But in this study, they found the arteries of those that were told stress were helpful did just like this. Now their heart was racing faster and pumping, but they were getting more oxygen. And they were actually performing better and getting stronger. Now their cortisol and their adrenaline did go up, but it came down after the test was over. Naturally, because think about it, their body thought of this as a challenge and not a threat. When you think of a threat, you're in the tiger, fight or flight, and your body kind of coils down. We actually, your brain goes offline, so we actually can't think really great. It's just about running or fighting. But when you think of stress like a challenge, you actually strengthen your body and you perform better. It's a different response. It's just that simple belief can actually change somebody having a heart attack in their 50s or living until their 90s. So by changing from a threat belief to a challenge belief, your body performs completely differently. And you don't have to worry so much about this closing out the stress because your body doesn't see it as a tiger chase. Give me thumbs up if you're willing to go through a few examples. See how to test out this. You ready? Okay, I'm going to need your help. Okay, let's say your boss says, I need that proposal a day early, or that order, or that shipment a day early. This is a big order, and you're like, oh, I've been working weeks on this, and you want it a day early? And the threat, if you're thinking in the threat, you're going to, now this is all, I want you to understand, there's no black and white, but I want you to understand the difference between threat and challenge. There could be 50 different threats that people think of for the same scenario, but you're going to get the tiger response. So that could be, holy moly, I'm going to screw up, I'm going to fail, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to look ridiculous, I'm going to let everybody down. I always screw up. That's a threat belief. Tiger, your body is going to respond with the tiger response. So a challenge response could be, you know what, this is going to be tough. Let me think, I need to plan for this. If I turn off my email and my phone and I push a few things a couple days out, I can just focus for the next couple hours, and I think I can do it. See it as a challenge that you can overcome, even if it seems a stretch. So let's try out. So I'm sure nobody's had financial troubles. Bills are piling up. Maybe a car breakdown, you've had to buy a new car, or you've had to repair, a lot of bills for repair, or the water heater gave out, or you're not getting your hours at work, so the income's down, but the bills are piling up. So the threat is, I don't know how to do this. I really don't know. I'm going to go into debt. I'm going to have to move out of this house. I'm going to have to get a different apartment. I can't believe how I got into this, how this happened. And then you ruminate about it over and over. That's the tiger, that's a threat. Now tell me what would be a challenge. Your turn.
Moving some bills around.
What's that?
Calling companies, moving some bills around.
Calling companies, moving bills, I love that. Yeah, that's great. You got money in the bank now? We know a lot can happen in a couple of weeks. I know.
Part-time job.
Part-time job. Maybe motivation to start looking for another job. And think of when you start to like put the pieces together, you would be motivated to get that resume punched out. It's amazing when we feel the challenge and we rise to it. Think of those times in your life where it seemed tough and you're like, I did it, I overcame it, and you got the energy to it. That's what happens. So let's say a diagnosis of cancer, of diabetes, a chronic disease, of heart disease. Yeah, that sucks. Threat is, oh gosh, darn it. How come these things happen to me? What in the world? Did I do something to deserve this? And now I know I'm gonna have to like eat food I don't like. And exercise. Oh, I hate exercising. She's got like me. Oh, and I know they're just gonna take away the things that I love. Okay, that is a threat. If you think that way, you're gonna get the stress response, the tiger response. But what about a challenge? What would a challenge response be?
Start small.
Start small. I can do this. Yeah. Maybe I'm going to feel more energy. Maybe I'm going to feel better. Maybe I'm going to find foods I love that I wouldn't have ever tasted before or made. Maybe my body's going to feel strong. Traffic for a lot of people is a stress response, we get a tiger response for. So let's say you're running behind, the traffic's slowing you down, you're not going to make your appointment, this is an important appointment. So the threat is, I'm going to miss this appointment, darn it, it took me like a month to get this scheduled. Oh my goodness, I don't know how did I do this? So, oh my goodness, so I'm just angry at myself for letting this happen. That's a threat response. What would a challenge, what would be the growth, the learning, the benefit, or the reward that you can find? It doesn't mean you love it. It just means I got to look at this. What's the challenge?
Plan the meeting better.
Plan the meeting better, yes. Yes, look.
Also put on the right speed and order.
Yeah, okay, Ernie's gonna go for it. So, yes, yes.
Find an alternate route.
Find an alternate route. Maybe look at adding more padding in if it's an important appointment. Maybe it's a learning opportunity. That, you know what I do kind of run close on this. I had a lot of things that I wanted to do before this. So maybe it's a learning opportunity. And maybe, you know, you just don't be able to reschedule the next day. I don't know. And maybe you'll ask your daughter, how do you do those podcast things? So now that you have a little more time in the car, whenever you do, you can listen to a podcast that you like. But looking for the growth opportunity, the reward, the benefit. Okay, last one. So nobody's new to this one. We all have tricky relationships. They may not be yelling, but we all have those relationships that get sticky or they just don't feel good. So the threat might be, you know what? You know, I have trouble. I get triggered with them, and you know, I can't seem to get a word in edgewise. They're always over talking me, and when I go away, I always feel small. What would the challenge be? My belief, mindset. This is an important relationship to me. And I want to, you know what? It takes two. And I want to learn. I can't change them. Seek counseling. Get help. Grow from it. Because when you learn to deal with somebody that's tricky, that's valuable in all aspects of life. My son is 19 now. For a good portion of his growing up, he was a challenge for me. We clashed a lot. I have grown the most from him. He's been a gift. Don't get me wrong, it was hard. But he was a gift. Because I wanted to learn. But how can you see things as a challenge, as a growth opportunity, as a reward, as the benefit? Okay, so one last example. Navy SEAL. So Navy SEALs, boot camp, Hell Week, 5.5 days of sleep deprivation, extreme temperature, cold, I believe, slogging through mud. These are guys and gals that have for years trained and dreamt of getting through. Only 25% make it through. They've tracked what is the secret to those that make it through. Because these are elite people. In their physical, stamina, mental, all those things, way. But only 25% make it. What do you think? Using what we just learned, what do you think is the secret?
They look at it as a challenge. Everything's a challenge that we need to overcome.
Exactly. They've never been through this hell, but they saw it as a challenge, and they were going to rise to it. And physically, they got stronger, both mentally and physically. And even when seeds of doubt were planted, they pushed it away. And they said, I can get through this. I can conquer it. It's going to end, and I'm going to get through it. I'm going to be stronger because of it. It wasn't the guys that could bench press the most. It was those that had that attitude of, I'm going to make it. Pretty cool. What I want you to understand is that we aren't usually ever 100% in challenge mindset belief and 100% in stress response. It's usually on the spectrum, but we want to be over on the challenge most of the time. And it takes reframing and work. And also, you know what? We're wired to automatically respond as a tiger. So you're still going to find those times. Yesterday, this car cut me off. Whoa, I could just feel it in my body. Just all the stress and the hormones and all that. And there's going to be the times that it's just happening. You're not even aware of it, that chronic stuff. So you're not going to be able to magically solve everything by believing as a challenge. But that will help, and it will change the trajectory of your life, because stress wastes your health. And then I want you to add in some of those activities, either movement that you enjoy, that you look forward to, or a hobby or creative expression, or being out in nature. Add those in regularly. Those will help, I guarantee it. The last thing that I want to do together is abdominal breathing, because abdominal breathing triggers your parasympathetic nervous system. I'm a big advocate of it. If you've ever been to my classes, I'll put you through it, because it is the one thing I can lead everybody in the room to lower their blood pressure in 1 minute. Now, if you Google online vagus nerve breathing or abdominal breathing or lowering your blood pressure, you're going to come up with all kinds of results. And they're probably all right. Tonight we're going to do abdominal breathing, but I want you to be aware that there's 3 things that need to take place when you do this, so it actually lowers your blood pressure. It triggers your vagus nerve. Your vagus nerve runs from your brain to your heart, and it monitors a whole bunch of things. It's the largest nerve in your body. But there's 3 things that need to happen. That is, your exhale needs to be longer than your inhale. And that cycle of inhale, exhale, because we do one after the other, needs to be 10 seconds or longer. So these are slowed down breaths. And you need to do it for a minute or longer, because your body is pretty smart, and one cycle is going to be like, oh, we can go down into rest. So you got to really, this is about telling your vagus nerve there's no tigers around, that I can go down and close out the cycle. So I do abdominal breathing because, do we have any opera singers in the room? Okay, if you're opera singer, you're going to be taught to breathe through your stomach. Okay, this is where your muscles are for breathing. You get the most breath. Anybody have a brand new baby in the family that they can watch? If you got a brand new baby, they will breathe through their stomach because they have to be dead serious about getting the most oxygen to their body and brain. And somewhere along the line, we switch it up to here. Okay, but that's not the best breathing. Trumpet players, they tell me that they breathe down here. Okay, so it's the best kind of breathing. So we're going to do that. So you can come along or you can just listen, but it's really simple. Put your hand on your belly, kind of up there by the diaphragm, and at the top where you can feel the inhale, exhale. I like to close my eyes so I can concentrate and hand on the chest, and just feel where you are right now. And then we're going to start taking a breath through our stomach like a balloon, fill it up in the stomach area through our nose, and then we're going to breathe out through our chest like a straw. Just slowly, okay? So just go ahead and start switching to stomach in or stomach out like a balloon, chest out through the mouth, stomach out, 3, 4, chest out, 3, 4, 5, stomach, 3, 4, chest, 3, 4, hold it longer, slower, and stomach, 3, balloon, fill it up, chest, 3, 4, hold it through the straw, 2 more, stomach, 3, 4, chest, through the straw, 3, 4, hold it, last one, stomach, fill up the balloon, 3, 4, and chest, through the mouth like a straw, hold it, and go back to your normal breathing. Now when you hold is considered exhale. So we didn't quite do a minute. So your body, your vagus nerve was watching. It may not have brought things down. You may or may not feel relaxed, okay? Remember, blood pressure is silent. So you may not feel that, but you might feel some of the hormones changing, that kind of thing. Winter times that you should do abdominal breathing then, to close out the stress cycle, to bring down your heart rate and your blood pressure, and it increases your heart rate variability. Winter times that you want to do that.
Really anxious.
When you're anxious. Who said that? Yes. When you're anxious, that's a great time to just go into breathing. Yes.
Before you go to sleep.
Before you go to sleep, it's a great way to get things off your mind. I do it first thing in the morning too. I have white coat syndrome, so that's usually an indicator that just thinking about stress, I get stressed. Okay. I know a lot of people are like, oh, she probably never gets stressed. Well, I work on it lots. So that is not the way I was wired or made, okay? So, but I do it first thing in the morning after I meditate, so that when I get up, I am in my best place possible. And a lot of us have alarms that go off. I do have one of those that brightens so that I don't hear the alarm, because the alarm is going to set me off. I know too. So those things are going to set us off in tiger response, most all of us. Doing it throughout the day, I try and do it 5 to 15 times throughout the day. So when I find a moment, I try to do abdominal breathing instead of getting on my phone. The other day, my daughter, 13, she's at that stage where we're out shopping for clothes, and she's like, no, you can't come in, but I'm not going to go out there and show you, so you got to stay right there. So I stood there, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do abdominal breathing. I just did abdominal breathing once. Are you ready? Do you have some on? Okay. So grocery store line, just things like that. When you start paying attention, you'll see times, but we don't know when our blood pressure's up. We don't. Okay, sometimes we feel that acute stress response, yes, but chronic stress that's grinding away at us, we don't feel. It's really sneaky. So doing it before you go into, a tough conversation, after, and I always like to say, why don't you do it before you go out with your significant other? Because, you know what? We tend to take those people for granted that we love the most. So I think it's about being your best self. In conclusion, I want you to know that, I want you to trust yourself that you got the stress. That you are going to take this on and change your belief, to challenge beliefs, and integrate in more stress management activities so that you get more years out of your life and more living out of your life. So I'm just excited that you were here to hear about the latest research and really how it can make a difference, how a belief can make a difference in actually how you perform, how your health, to actually help your body. So my job now isn't to get rid of stress for people, but to teach people how to make stress, make them more healthier and stronger and helpful. So thank you.